For more than 50 years, local naturalists, both amateur and professional, have been keeping detailed records and taking photographs of the wealth of plants and animals around our town. This unique collection of drawings, photographs and slides is housed at Southend Central Museum and provides a fascinating glimpse of the wildlife all around us. Southend is the largest built-up area in Essex, popular with trippers who flock to the seafront and a large bustling town of offices and light industry. So where is the wildlife? Well, you don't have to go far. Let's have a look. Early maps of the Southend area show huge blocks of woodland in the Leigh and Hadley area, many now gone. Coxall, Horsley and Carpenter's Woods, for example, are not known to us, lost long ago, mainly to housing development. But a few, notably Belfair's Great Wood, remain. Belfair's too would have been built upon were it not for a determined campaign by a local man, Dr. Stovin, and the fellow founder members of the South Essex Natural History Society. Feelings ran high as Southend Council debated whether to purchase the wood, but a petition organised by the Natural History Society and signed by more than 21,000 residents tipped the scales, and the wood was purchased as a nature reserve in 1938. Belfair's Nature Reserve, as it became known, was one of the first in Britain to be established by a local authority, and, until the 1960s, the only nature reserve in Essex. The wood is a fine example of management by coppicing, a type of timber harvesting practiced in woods throughout England until the Second World War, but now only really undertaken for conservation reasons. Coppicing involves the felling of some trees almost to ground level, leaving low stumps from which clusters of shoots develop the following year. These grow into poles which are cut every 7 to 15 years. Between the coppiced trees grow larger trees, the so-called standards, which are only rarely felled for timber. Coppiced woods are so good for wildlife because the mosaic of sunlit clearings that are created allows a wealth of flowers to flourish. And with the flowers, all the associated insects, bluebells, orchids, cowwheat, wood anemone, wood spurge, yellow archangel, and bugle are just a few of the delightful plants which flourish after coppicing, while the common butterflies include the speckled wood, comma, brimstone, and orange tip. The reserve was formerly home to the heath fritillary, which was introduced from Kent in about 1923 and persisted for about 50 years. Its caterpillar feeds on common cowwheat, a plant which only thrives in well-lit, coppiced clearings. A fine example of the value of coppicing is worth a mention. 200 years ago, a wood rush new to science was found in Essex. It was considered long extinct in the county until 1993, when, amazingly, it turned up in a newly coppiced part of Belfair's Nature Reserve. Perhaps buried seed exposed to the warm sun had germinated, or the plant had survived as a few light-starved shoots. Thanks to coppicing, this graceful little plant is once again part of the Essex flora. The rather uncommon wood ant is a speciality of the Belfairs area. It builds large dome-shaped nests around old tree stumps, piling up thousands of twig fragments. From the nest, workers forage in search of caterpillars, sweet sap from buds, and aphids, which are milked for the sugary juices they exude. In autumn, the fungi appear. Over 500 of these strange and beautiful organisms grow in the reserve. Remember, fungi look best where they grow, so please don't pick or destroy them. Oak wood, a rather surprising fragment of ancient woodland, survives near the arterial road at Eastwood. Although not coppiced, the grassy banks beside the busy road are well lit, rich in flowers and a graceful grass, the wood melick. Hedgerows, like these at Edwards Hall Park, are like long, thin woods, and we know that, in general, the older the hedge, the more species of tree grow in it. Here are flower meadows surrounded by the most wonderful old hedgerows containing hawthorn, dog rose, field maple, and spindle. In the right light, you can even see traces of medieval ridge and furrow cultivation, an astonishing glimpse of an historic landscape. The Belton Hills, a south-facing slope nearly a mile long by Leigh railway station, and the largest expanse of natural grassland in Southend. The rich plant life includes the pretty Salsify, as well as several plants of the pea family, notably the grass vetchling and the rare Bithynian vetch. The Deptford pink, a beautiful rarity, springs up every 10 years or so. Over 200 different species of moths and their caterpillars have been found on the Belton Hills in recent years. On a sunny day, a wide variety of butterflies may be seen, including the rare marbled white, the small copper, and the lovely common blue. In late summer you can hear, and if you're lucky, see Britain's largest grasshopper, the great green bush cricket. For such a wildlife-rich site, nature conservation is the priority. One recent problem is the spread of the yellow-green flowered plant Alexander's, which seems to be smothering some of the more delicate vegetation. Chalkwell Park in Southend. Here is a type of grassland that is rather a speciality of towns, the lawn. In recent years, botanists have pinpointed several patches of old lawn that are of outstanding interest for their special plants. Here, for example, is probably the largest stand of the rare subterranean clover in the county. Just outside Prittlewell Priory is a lawn with the beautiful meadow saxifrage, flowering briefly in May. In autumn, strange and colourful fungi can be seen on the lawns around the bowling greens. Lawns like these are poor in nutrients and only survive by not being treated with herbicides and fertilizers. There may be other such lawns in the town, perhaps you know of one. Parks have other features which make them havens for wildlife. Grassy swards with scattered trees and bushes are ideal places to see birds. Many are residents such as robins, song thrushes and collared doves. On a walk in Priory Park, you may see a couple of dozen different birds in summer, including visitors like the chiff-chaff, house martins and spotted flycatcher. In winter you can see redwings and fieldfares from Scandinavia and flocks of black-headed gulls. A tour of the parks will also introduce you to some pretty exotic trees, such as the red horse chestnut, the Caucasian wingnut, a speciality of Priory Park, and the loquat, here seen in fruit in Leigh Library Gardens. Everyone feels drawn to a pond, and the ducks and coots of the old monastery fish ponds in Priory Park give pleasure to thousands of people. When one of the ponds was dredged a few years ago to remove the great build-up of silt, large numbers of swan mussels were revealed. This is Britain's largest freshwater mussel, and these were of near record size. They feed by filtering food particles from the cloudy water. Beside the fish ponds is a small ditch-like pond rich in water life. Pond dipping sessions run by the museum are a favourite activity here.
Look, there's a few little there, look. One side. It's on my finger.
Down here.
Surprisingly, reed beds can be found in some Southend parks, such as this brackish one at Southchurch Park East. These are sanctuaries for coots, moorhens and the little reed warblers. The old gravel pit ponds in Friars Park also have reed beds and some other interesting inhabitants. One is the American pondweed called floating pennywort. This outcast from aquatic garden centres can spread dramatically. Another American visitor, this tiny duckweed, carpets a pond in nearby Gunners Park and is also a potential problem. Red-eared terrapins are other rather surprising residents from abroad. Also from America, discarded pets now living in the wild. Southend's coast has been the basis of its wealth, And its natural wealth is tremendous too, both locally and on a county scale, and even internationally. At Shoebury, on the old army ranges, is a site unique in Essex for its spring flowers growing on stabilised sand and shingle. Rabbits play a key part in churning up the soil to just the right degree. The mottled grasshopper and other rare insects like the bee wolf, a solitary wasp which paralyzes honeybees and carries them back to its burrow to feed its young, can be seen. Even by the beach huts, the interesting vegetation survives. One rare grass, the bulbous meadowgrass, dies down early in the year, lasting through the summer as little bulb-like organs resembling minute spring onions. Let's take a closer look at the coast. At high tide, it's Southend-on-sea. But at low tide, it's Southend-on-mud, as the sea retreats almost a mile. Off Foulness Island, mudflats are exposed up to 3 miles from land. The mud may look bare, but it's packed with living creatures. Cockles in numbers beyond belief, filtering food particles from the water through their tube-like siphons. Holes in the mud are often the only clues to the presence of lugworms, which extract food from the mud that passes through them. These and the carnivorous ragworms are the quarry of local bait diggers. Other strange worms build themselves tubes out of silt or sand in which they live, filtering the water with feathery tentacles. A speciality of the local mudflats is a type of underwater grass, not a seaweed, called eelgrass, which grows steadily through the summer. It's the favourite food of huge flocks of dark-bellied Brent geese, which spend the winter here after a summer breeding season in Siberia. Up to 1/5 of the world population of this goose overwinters on the Essex coast, many at Leigh, which is why it is a national nature reserve. For its size, the River Thames is one of the cleanest rivers in Europe, thanks to a clean-up campaign over the last 30 years. Over 100 species of fish live in the tidal part of the river, and the marine life is surprisingly varied. Between the mudflats and the seawall is often a zone of special vegetation that doesn't mind being covered by high tides. The silvery leaves of sea purslane dominate the view, while in summer, sea lavender with its purple flowers and sea aster attract insects. The annual sea purslane was believed extinct in Britain for over 50 years. But in 1987, on some saltings near Southend, it was discovered. Another first for the Southend area. Watch out for Roselle's bush cricket on the seawalls in summer. Its strange whirring noise is quite distinctive. Even the humble roadside verge shouldn't be overlooked on our safari. Some are flowered-covered banks, but even if mown short, the flowers are often still there, like these small clovers. This little white-flowered scurvy grass, normally a salt marsh plant, thrives where roads are salted. Churchyards are special places for lichens and ferns, finding toeholds in old brickwork and on tombs. Rosettes of colourful lichens cover old church walls and gravestones, which take the place of natural rock outcrops in this part of the world. The turf can be good for flowers, especially where weed killers and fertilizers have not been used. Hidden away behind fences and hoardings, there are patches of neglected ground awaiting development. For the naturalist, these are rich hunting grounds, ablaze with colourful flowers from all over the world and alive with butterflies like the Red Admiral, Large Skipper and Painted Lady. Harmless slowworms hide beneath pieces of wood and lizards bask in the sun. Goldfinches can find a quiet spot to nest, feeding their young on weed seeds. If you have a garden, you have a potential nature reserve on your doorstep. There are a number of things that you can do to enhance its wildlife value. Creepers covering a fence give shelter for birds and insects. Nest boxes and even an old kettle provide homes for the birds. A compost heap or bin will recycle your garden waste and encourage mini beasts. A pile of logs or branches may even provide shelter for a hedgehog. Foxes are quite common in Southend and visit gardens, although not often seen. Badgers, although rare, are regular visitors to gardens near their set. A pond is a must for every garden and a world in itself, teeming with strange water creatures. The annual spectacle of the frog's mating frenzy takes place as early as February in Southend ponds. The development from frog spawn to adult is a fascinating process to watch. Toads and 2 types of newt can also be expected in the Southend area. Always have some plants that stick out of the water, as this allows insects like damselflies and dragonflies to emerge from their larval stages in the waters of the pond. When gardening for wildlife, go for traditional varieties and old cottage garden flowers rich in scent and nectar. A few small changes like these to our gardens and an understanding approach to nature will help preserve the tremendously rich wildlife of Southend for future generations.